it's the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. Well, the Doug Rising Show. And I'm Doug Rice. You know, French horns. French horns have a different sound. Hey guys, how you doing? Doug Rice. How are you this morning? The day is yet dawning and some are still yawning. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, the 7th. I'm here every day at 10. Until I say differently. We'll talk about it then. All right, Negroes, Royal Tribe of Judah, Hebrews. Good morning. Yesterday, we had an offering of the 13th tribe provided by Arthur Koestler. Let me tell you something. What a mental wrestler. I mean, he gives you something to think about. You didn't have a chance to take a look at yesterday's offering. This is part 2, the one that I'm per-offering. And yeah, I'll use the same old stuff that I use over and over again. Hey, listen, hit the like, the button, the share button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. Now, the notification bell can go to hell because no one gets notified, as I can tell. And I don't mind. That's cool and swell. I do believe the idea might sell. All right, so how's everybody doing? I'm hoping everybody is doing well. It is the 7th of September. It is Thursday, 2023. My name is Doug Rice. Welcome to me. And I am a Negro. I am a Hebrew. I am of the royal line of Judah. I say that with as much bravado as I can exude. And I recommend that you say it too. I think you should all know your Hebrew, and so and such and thus. Try to get that so you get off the back of the bus. All right, you are the royal line of David. You are what the Bible describes at every turn. You, my brothers and sisters, they have hidden this for years. They've hidden this from us for centuries. They've covered over the facts. They have blinded the eyes of Negroes purposefully, prophetically, intentionally, emphatically, and it's worked like a charm. It has. But here, take my extended arm. I want to lead you to the path of truth. We got a little setup booth that'll show you the way, all the things that even their own have to say, and we'll start with a few pages of Mr. Koestler. Again, as I said, a mental wrestler. We were on page 5 or 6. I'm going to pick it up from this page, from page 7, I believe. And that is going to be part 2, the heritage, I believe. So we're going to do that as I see it. Yes, I'm right. Page 7. Part 2, the heritage versus justice, 13th tribe. Now listen, folks, share this while I'm live. Here's the reason why. Not too many people are going to appreciate what I have to say. I'm not doing this for numbers anyway. I don't care about the number of people I reach. I only intend to teach. And yeah, I was going to say preach, but I'm not a preacher really. I'm a teacher more anything, a writer first and foremost, a speaker second, and a teacher a distant third, because I have so much yet to learn, which is why I love the knowledge I yearn. All right, let's do this. Hope everybody is chatting away. Let me say this because this is important. I don't look at the chat. I'm going to keep it like that. I can't focus on what you folks are saying. This is the reason I'll soon hopefully be paying Detrina and Antoine Anderson You know, I say that name for a reason. Y'all better back up. That's my agent. All right? Listen, at some point, you guys are going to, somebody, one of you daring enough to call the Doug Rice Show, I will direct you to my agent, Anderson. Now, he has a certain garb that he will show up in your office in, please. Try not to get nervous, okay? He's just there as a part of the service just to get the Doug Rice Show out. And when you see him, there's going to be no reason for you to shout. I have no doubt. Okay, I'll stop. 13th Tribe, Arthur Koestler. Here we go. Hope everybody's having a good day. I hope you are having a daggum good day. I am, yes, consciously trying to remove profanity from my vernacular, only because I think what I have to say might be spectacular. No, that just went in line with the rhyme, so don't take that personally. That was mine. Next, let's go. 13th Tribe, Arthur Koestler, Part 2, the Heritage versus Exodus. This is interesting. The evidence quoted in the previous pages indicates that, contrary to the traditional view held by 19th century historians, the Kazars, I don't know how I'm going to pronounce that. Kazars, I don't care. Near, far, I don't care. So if I am mispronouncing it, I am now here announcing it. I don't care. Let it be mispronounced. And let it be so announced. The Kazars, after the defeat of the Russians in 965, 1,000 years before I was born, lost their empire but retained their independence with narrower frontiers and the Judaic faith well into the 13th century. They even seem to have reverted to some extent to the erstwhile predatory habits, barren comments. In general, the reduced Kazar kingdom persevered. It waged a more or less effective defense against all foes until the middle of the 13th century, when it fell victim to the great Mongol invasion, set in motion by the one and only Genghis Khan. I don't know, that might be related to Genghis Khan, but that might have been his older, less popular brother. I don't know. Even then, it resisted stubbornly until the surrender of all its neighbors. Its population was largely absorbed by the Golden Horde, which had established the center of its empire in Kazar territory. But before and after the Mongol upheaval, the Khazars sent many offshoots into the unsubdued Slavic Lands, helping ultimately to build up the great Jewish centers of Eastern Europe. Now, let me tell you this first, folks, as we pause for the calls. My name again, Doug Rice. The reason I take such great pleasure in reading this is because I, too, after rediscovering what I've read with you, it's an amazing insight when it's written out loud, and it's more than just trying to please the crowd. Look into that verbiage. Slavonic lands. Now that's where those Ukrainians stand. Those are Slavs for all intents and purposes. And so what we see is, and again, before and after the Mongol upheaval, the Khazars had sent many offshoots, into, again, I'll quote, the unsubdued Slavic lands, helping ultimately to build up the great Jewish centers of Eastern Europe. Now, brothers and sisters, this is important that we understand how we were traversed, how we were replaced, how we right in our face were taken out of our place and into another space while others stole our grace. I was going to say GD, but I'm trying not to curse. All right, so next verse. Here we go. Here then, we have the cradle of the numerically strongest and culturally dominant part of modern Jewry. The offshoots to which Baron refers were indeed branching out long before the destruction of the Khazar state by the Mongols. As the ancient Hebrew nation had started branching into the diaspora long before the destruction of Jerusalem, ethnically, the Semitic tribes on the waters of the Jordan and the Turco-Kazar tribes on the Volga were, of course, miles apart, but they had at least two important formative factors in common. Each lived at a focal junction where the great trade routes connecting east and west, north and south intersect, a circumstance which predisposed them to become nations of traders, of enterprising travelers, of ruthless cosmopolitans, as hostile propaganda has unaffectionately labeled it. But at the same time, their exclusive religion fostered a tendency to keep to themselves and stick together to establish their own communities with their own places of worship, schools, residential quarters, and ghettos, originally self-imposed, in whatever town or country they settled. This rare combination of wanderlust and ghetto mentality, reinforced by messianic hopes and chosen race pride, both ancient Israel and medieval Khazars shared, even though the latter traced their descendants not to Shem, but to Japheth. Uh-oh, let me catch my breath. Now, I don't know about you Hebrews, but that says a lot to me. What about you? I can't speak to it, but good Lord. My goodness, that in itself, that claim, that open, I would say hereditary shame, there they are, switching up on names. What is going on here? So again, this rare combination of wanderlust and ghetto mentality, reinforced by messianic hopes and a chosen race pride, that is a powerful piece of writing. Because this is what they do today. This is how they conquered the earth and lightened it by several shades. This combination of wanderlust and ghetto mentality imposed upon Negroes. In an eventuality, we see how it all goes, reinforced by their Masonic hopes. Now, listen, folks. You know they got a guy just caught my eye over in Jerusalem, over in Israel. And his name is Shlomo. I don't know. Listen, I'll say it again. His name is Shlomo. Nice guy, you know. Seems like a nice kind of guy, a little youngster, about 30 so. He got glasses on, wears the big curls, and he just walks about, I understand, healing and performing miracles. And this seems to be a continuity in being exactly what these creatures are seeing and hoping for. And they're purposefully, in store for a high disappointment in their lives. I mean, what are they doing? And it's right before our eyes. Again, let's read it. This rare combination of wanderlust and ghetto mentality reinforced by messianic hopes and chosen race pride. That's what they got today. Both ancient Israelites and medieval Khazars shared. These are the things that they shared, those combinations of qualities. But even though, in the face of the fact that in the absolute, purposefully mentioned, established, and unequivocal fact that they descend not from Shem, but from Japheth. Let's, again, catch our breath. There it is. So, I don't know, man. It's a good book, 13th Tribe, Arthur Koestler, one of their own. One of their own people telling the truth. I don't know. Seems a bit brutal, but on with the show. Let's go to the next chapter. Let's see what comes after, and it looks as if where from is going to be the gift. Here we go. 13th tribe. Where from? Where from? Uh-oh. Where from? An interesting question. Two basic facts emerge from our survey: the disappearance of the Kazar nation from its historic habitat and the simultaneous appearance in adjacent regions to the northwest of the greatest concentration of Jews since the beginnings of the diaspora. Since the two are obviously connected, historians agree that immigration from Khazaria must have contributed to the growth of Polish Jewry. The conclusion supported by the evidence cited in the previous chapters, as we've read. But they feel less certain about the extent of this contribution, the size of the Khazar immigration compared with the influx of Western Jews and their respective share in the genetic makeup of the modern Jewish community. In other words, the fact that Khazars emigrated in substantial numbers into Poland is established beyond dispute. The question is whether they provided the bulk of the new settlement or only its hardcore, as it were. To find an answer to this question, we must get some idea of the size of the immigration of real Jews from the West. Well, Annette put it to the test. Okay, so let's move on to 2. Towards the end of the first millennium, the most important settlements of Western European Jews were in France and the Rhineland, not counting the Jews of Spain, who formed a category apart and did not participate in the migratory movements with which we are here concerned. Very interesting, very interesting. Some of these communities had probably been founded in Roman days, for between the destruction of Jerusalem and the decline of the Roman Empire, Jews had settled in many of the greater cities under its rule and were later on reinforced by immigrants from Italy and North Africa. Thus, we have records from the 9th century onwards of Jewish communities in places all over France, from Normandy down to Provence and the Mediterranean. One group even crossed the Channel to England in the wake of the Norman invasion, apparently invited by William the Conqueror because he needed their capital and enterprise. Their history has been summed up by Baron. They were subsequently converted into a class of royal usurers, whose main function was to provide credits for both political and economic ventures. After accumulating great wealth through the high rate of interest, these moneylenders were forced to disgorge it in one form or another for the benefit of the royal treasury. The prolonged well-being of many Jewish families, the splendor of their residence and attire, and their influence on public affairs blinded even experienced observers to the deep dangers lurking from the growing resentment of debtors of all classes and the exclusive dependence of Jews on the protection of their royal masters. Rumblings of discontent culminating in violent outbreaks between 1189 and 1190 presaged the final tragedy, the expulsion of 1290. The meteoric rise and even more rapid decline of English Jewry in the brief span of 2¼ centuries between 1066 and 1290 brought into sharp relief the fundamental factors shaping the destinies of all Western Jewries in the crucial first half of the second millennium. So here we see very clearly A repeat of history in the reverse. Here we are, folks. Listen carefully. And we know why Jews have been expelled from one place or another, but here we have a definitive reason placed at their feet. Usury, high interest, money lenders. And that's what we see today, but let me just say, they'd much prefer we look the other way when it comes to, all the evidence that comes to play. Well, I don't know. It's an interesting tell, is it not? Let's see what else it has to say. The English example is instructive because it is exceptionally well documented compared to the early history of the Jewish communities on the continent. The main lesson we derive from it is that the social economic influence of the Jews was quite out of proportion with their small numbers. Now let me read that over because it's very interesting. The main lesson we derive from it is that the social economic influence of the Jews was quite out of proportion with their small numbers. There were apparently no more than 2,500 Jews in England at any time before the expulsion of 12 lands, and that's according to the classic survey of Joseph Jacobs. Jews of Angevin, England, based on recorded Jewish families, names, and other documents, and quoted by Barron. And this tiny Jewish community in medieval England played a leading part in the country's economic establishment, much more so than its opposite number in Poland. Yet, contrast to Poland, it could not rely on a network of Jewish small towns to provide it with a mass basis of humble craftsmen, of lower middle class artisans and workmen, carters and innkeepers. And it had no roots in the people. So here we discover what seems to be a common theme. And again, folks, no, it's not a dream. This is what historians mean when they point to the history of Jewry. And these days, they've managed to maintain almost a hands-off state. You're not permitted to relate the facts. And of course that's where all of this lacks. All right, so on with the show. So we got now cross-currents we're going to talk about, Here we go. Crosscurrents, section 7. Let's move this. So on the evidence quoted in previous chapters, one can easily understand why Polish historians, who are, after all, closest to the sources, are in agreement that in early times, the main bulk of the Jewish population originated from the Kazar country. One might even be tempted to overstate the case by claiming, as Kachira does, that Eastern Jewry was 100% of Kazar origin. Such a claim might be tenable if the ill-fated Franco-Rhenish community were the only rival in the search for paternity. But in the latter Middle Ages, things became more complicated by the rise and fall of Jewish settlements all over the territories of the former Austrian-Hungarian monarchy and the Balkans. Let's pause there for just a moment, shall we? Now, we're talking about resentment. We're talking about placement. We're talking about settlements. We're talking about, what is it that builds resentment and in people and over time? Look carefully at who they encroached themselves upon. Austro, as they've said, Hungarian monarchy and the Balkan. And we know that hundreds of years into the future, these same individuals are forced out, and then a world war is forced into play as they attempt to find some place to stay. And from that, the 1948 Balfour Act became an established firm fact. And what do you think of that? We're looking at history. We're finding out first, folks, that we have been replaced, sold into slavery by individuals who come from another race. Now, the concept of race may be completely in error, but I only offer it because it's their invention. And it's amazing that I even mention, but it's the truth. We are not the same, and they have usurped us. You can see it clearly. Their own people tell the story. All right, I want to move forward to the next slide because there's a lot to go here, and I want to move forward. I'll do. All right, so hold on, folks. This is the one I wanted to get to. That's why I probably am very excited about this. Okay, this is chapter 8, Race and Myth. Folks, now listen, this is going to be great. You need to listen to this, all right? Here we go. This is a pretty good one. So, the Jews of our times fall into two main divisions. I think you've heard this before. The Sephardim, thank you, Sephardic Jew, thank you, and the Ashkenazim. Now, the Sephardim are descendants of the Jews who since antiquity had lived in Spain, in Hebrew Sepharad, until they were expelled at the end of the 15th century and settled in the countries bordering on the Mediterranean, the Balkans, and to a lesser extent in Western Europe. They spoke a Spanish Hebrew dialect, Ladino, and preserved their own traditions and religious rites. In the 1960s, the number of Sephardim was estimated at what looks to be 500,000. Let's pause there just for a second, because I want to expound a little bit. All right, now listen. Now we're getting this kind of this central theme, the Spanish flair, if you know what I mean. It's kind of rolling through. And you do know there are a lot of Spanish Jews, okay? And we also understand that somehow they invaded into other lands, took over other Slavic states. So hopefully all of this relates to how this occurred, how this happened. And it's an interesting story, and we're going to continue and get more. Here we go. The Ashkenazim at the same period numbered about 11 million. Thus, in common parlance, Jew is practically synonymous with Ashkenazi Jew. We are going to read that again. What do you think? Yes. The Ashkenazim at the same period numbered about 11 million. Thus, in common parlance, Jew is practically synonymous with Ashkenazi Jew. But the term is misleading, for the Hebrew word Ashkenaz was in medieval rabbinical literature applied to Germany, thus contributing to the legend that modern Jewry originated on the Rhine. Oh my goodness, listen to that. I'll say it one more time, but the term is misleading. For the Hebrew word Ashkenaz was in medieval rabbinical literature applied to Germany, thus contributing to the legend that modern Jewry originated on the Rhine. There is, however, no other term to refer to the non-Sophetic majority of contemporary Jewry. For the sake of piquantry, it should be mentioned that the Ashkenaz of the Bible refers to a people living somewhere in the vicinity of Mount Ararat and Armenia. The name occurs in Genesis 10:3 and Chronicles 1:6 as one of the sons of Gomer, who was a son of Japheth. Ashkenaz is also a brother of Togarmah, I know that, right? And a nephew of Magog. So look how they're all intertwined, sitting on that log of familiar families. We're going to do that one more time. Let's go ahead and go through it. Forget that rhyme. The name occurs in Genesis 10:3, Chronicles 1:6 as one of the sons of Gomer, who was a son of Japheth. Ashkenaz is also a brother of Togarmah, a nephew of Magog. So we know what's happening now. Whom the Kazars, according to King Joseph, claimed as their ancestor. But worse was to come. For Ashkenaz is also named in Jeremiah 51:27, where the prophet calls his people and their allies to rise and destroy Babylon. Call thee upon the kingdoms of Ararat, Mini, and what's that say there? Ashkenaz. This passage was interpreted by the famous Saadia Gaon, a spiritual leader of Oriental Jewry. Did I need to say that again? Spiritual leader of Oriental Jewry, Magog, Jewry in the 10th century as a prophecy related to his own times. Babylon symbolized the Caliphate of Baghdad, and the Ashkenaz who attack it were either the Khazars themselves or some allied tribe. According, says Polyak, some learned Kazar Jews who heard of Goan's ingenious arguments called themselves Ashkenazim when they immigrated to Poland. It does not prove anything, but it adds to the confusion. Well, I'll say. Well, now, again, folks, this coming from the mouth of the very, of folks that are related to this circumstance, there's just no chance that this is off. This is not off kilter. This has gone through their filter. And I got to tell you, it's a shocking circumstance, shocking turn of events. We now understand just how all of this went. And, we talked about Edom and Esau a couple of shows ago. Now we're kind of into the 13th tribe, just so you know. And intertwined in all of that is our enslavement. And right about now is where the shit hits the pavement. All right, so I just sounded good, so I said it. All right, so listen. I am embarking on a new way to make a living. I've had to make some adjustments, and there are no excuses that I'm giving. I am an honest, upright, righteous Negro, unless otherwise, and then I'll tell you so. But I do not abide wrongdoing. I will not abide, any kind of pursuing of illegal entities. Now my words escape me at this point because the bottom line is I want it said openly and publicly that I try to be as upright as possible, and I make mistakes, and I've had to correct a few mistakes for goodness sakes, and that's here lately. I am not going to be too public about it, but I need to say it emphatically. I do this show every day first, and not just dramatically. I do it because it quenches my spiritual thirst. And I do it first. I do it, I lead with the kingdom every day, and I can't just do this as a thing that I say. I have to live it as well. And I try to, and I do that even when I sell. And I want you to understand that. And I say that for a purpose so that not just your ears hear it, so that other ears hear it that matter beyond this conversation. All right, there we go. That's my information. The rest of this is just an appendix page. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I will tell you this. You were close. Something has to happen. Some folks told me they think maybe the jab might be a way out, and that's really all I've got on that. I think the mandated, whatever they intend to serve to us, is going to be a take it or leave it, if not get on the bus kind of condition to this whole thing. And I think it's going to be a forced extrication in all effect. I think that they're gonna put something in front of us that we will not accept, and that's when the God of Negroes will jump in to protect. That's what's going on. So I gotta go. Thank you so much for being here for the Doug Rice Show. I'm trying to cut it down between about 35-45 minutes because I know some of y'all get real bored while you're in it. Whatever, moving on. All right, well, appreciate you showing up. This is the Doug Rice Show. You know, use the donation links below. And if you're interested in a few of these PDFs, you know, I got a whole bunch of them left. And I know that I shared the document donation list. If you really need it, just email Detrina. She'll give you the gist. The Doug Rice Show at Gmail. And if you're just going to give and then text later or email later, just do $, the Doug Rice Show. Believe me, my circumstances call for this request. So I take these chances and address that any support that you lend will lend toward this effort. And that's it. That's all I got, folks. I'm done. All right. You guys have a wonderful morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to Doug Rice Show. We'll talk about some other stuff tomorrow, just so you know. All right, gotta go. What? Damn it. Listen, folks, every day I gotta do this. I don't know why, but let's get to this. You're out there. I know some of you, what is it? It's 10:36 in the freaking morning. I mean, you're not in the bed yawning. I know you're out there in traffic, huh? Are you out there? Are you out there in the flow? Well, let me tell you this just so you know. There's danger afoot, Negroes. It's all around you. If you look close enough, you'll discover it's found you. But my job is to put you on guard. And I got to tell you, it's not very hard. All you got to do is listen to the sound of my voice, and you're going to make the correct Negro choice. If you got to be out there in these folks' faces, do me a favor, folks. Get your goddamn grin off your faces. Okay, so now you're good to go. Yeah, have a good day, and thanks for seeing me on the Doug Rice Show.